Hey, it's Ethan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at this compact Hitch Cargo Carrier from Flint Hill Goods and how it fits on our 2021 Mazda CX-5. I'll get a few measurements as we go, but we're just going to be focusing on fit on this specific vehicle, so if you want more details about the carrier, feel free to check the full review here at eTrailer or the product page. So with the CX-5, we have a decent amount of storage in the back, especially if we get that second row of seats folded down, but if we're using those for people, the back tends to get filled up pretty quickly. So this is a good solution for you if you want to get a little bit more storage out of your vehicle. Maybe you just have some bulkier items, or maybe they're a little bit messy. Again, this is a great way to get those out of the inside of the vehicle where they're not going to be leaving that mess and get them under the back. So this one is actually going to be made of steel with a black powder coat finish, which is a little bit different than some of their other aluminum carriers, but it still only comes in at 25 pounds. And is still able to support up to 500 pounds. The design is also a little bit different just because we only have these bars that go straight across. There's no grid pattern, so storing some cylinder items might be a little bit odd, but there's still enough room for you to get those items and still room for that mess to fall through. Around the side, we have the rails along the top and the bottom, as well as different points along the side for you to tie things down to and make sure that your gear is secure. We also do have these two reflectors on the front, which is nice, especially because it is that black powder coat finish, so driving with it at night, you're adding on a little bit of length to the end of your vehicle, and we want to make sure that people behind us can see it. I'll get a measurement from the bumper to the furthest point back, so we can see how much space we're actually adding on to the vehicle. So in our case, from the bumper to the furthest point back, it's going to be just under 23 inches, so it is really compact. It doesn't even add 2 feet onto the back. As far as ground clearance goes, it sticks pretty much straight out from the shank, so that's going to come in at about 10 inches from the ground. So that's going to be subject to change, though, as you start loading it up. If you get anywhere near close to 500 pounds in here, you're going to notice that ground clearance start to lower. So something you're going to want to keep in mind as you add more items to it. This one sits a little closer than the other ones, so I'll measure actually from the bumper to the closest point. In this case, we're still getting 3.5 inches of clearance. You might have a little shifting up and down, but again, as you start loading items in, it'll weigh it down and you'll lose some of that movement as well. Like I mentioned, we definitely recommend getting straps to hold your items down. We also have nets and bags if you want a little bit more security. As you start loading items up, you might wonder how high you can store them and still get your hatch open. In our case, we measured that breakover point. So where the bottom of the carrier meets this point, we found that that was going to be 25 inches. So you have a good amount of space for you to store up some taller items and still have access to the back. Keeping in mind that as you add those taller items, you might have the tendency to block your license plate if you get them high enough. Your backup camera is right here in the middle. So again, if you stack them up tall enough in the middle, that could potentially be obstructed. I don't see anything necessarily coming into contact with our taillights or our rear window, though. One thing that we do want to keep in mind, especially with this carrier, is that we do have 2 exhausts on the back of our CX-5, and they do stick straight out, blowing into where your items would be stored in the carrier. So if you have heat-sensitive items, maybe plastic, canvas, whatever, in the back that you don't want to be taking that damage over time while you're driving, you're going to have to be really mindful of that because, again, it does blow straight out at those items. Sticking down here, we can take a look at the shank. We have a 2-inch shank that fits into our 2-inch receiver. It's held in place by this hand-threadable anti-rattle bolt with the nut in the other end and the clip to keep it in place. So you will need a 3/4 socket wrench to get that on. We actually had to use the longer one in our case because it does thread through so far that we needed to get the longer one in order to get it on. So it's something you're going to need for the installation. Overall, though, I like this version of the cargo carrier a lot. I like the compact nature of it. I could see it being really easy to store if you don't want to keep it on all the time. Maybe just pop it on and off for those trips to the hardware store, again, picking up some of those messy items. That being said, Flint Hill Goods does have different shapes and sizes to fit your needs accordingly, so feel free to check out those product pages and videos here at eTrailer if you want. There are also options with ramps if you need a little bit of help loading and unloading those items. This right here, though, was just a look at the compact cargo carrier from Flint Hill Goods and how it fits on our 2021 Mazda CX-5.